So at the 11th hour, the government have extended the ban on tenant evictions from residential buy-to-let properties here in the UK. In this video, I'm going to explain why this is particularly bad for small landlords, very bad for tenants, and also not very good news for the UK economy. And I'm also going to share with you my suggestion for what we should do about it. Hi, my name is Ranjan Bhattacharya. I've been investing and developing properties for the last 30 years. If you're new to this channel, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell icon so you get notified as soon as we upload. We put out new videos each and every week. And also tell me what you think about this subject that I'm going to talk about, which is a subject which has infuriated me, quite frankly. The government has extended the ban on tenant evictions, and I believe this sets the wrong mood music. It's not very good for landlords, particularly smaller landlords. It's not very good for tenants, and it's not very good for the UK economy. And I'm also going to share with you my thoughts for what we should do about it that would be a lot better. Now, the problem with this whole policy is that it just sets the wrong mood music out there. It creates a feeling that some people can choose not to pay rent with the ultimate kind of safety net, if you like, that their landlord cannot evict them. Now, that all sounds very well and noble, but what about the landlord, particularly smaller landlords? They have mortgages to pay. Their mortgage companies are giving no leeway. You know, some of these properties are small HMOs. You know, the councils are not giving any let up on council tax payments. I've seen a lot of moans and groans presented on the BBC, but the BBC themselves have given no let up for TV license payments, even though they're not making an episode of EastEnders right now. To me, it seems very strange that if you're a homeowner and you have a mortgage, the mortgage company can basically repossess your house for non-payment of your mortgage payments far quicker than a landlord can do so with a tenant. Why is that? Because obviously mortgages are provided by big banks who have far bigger and powerful lobbyists which have the ear of government and have made sure that their policies do not act to their detriment. Landlords, of course, do not have that ear of government. There seems to be no body lobbying in their interests in a proper and successful way. We have a rather unique situation in the UK where one of the leading lobbyists for tenants is a housing charity called Shelter. Shelter, of course, a housing charity that provide absolutely no housing for anyone whatsoever. Their expenditure amounts to hiring lawyers and barristers and lobbying Parliament for tenants' interests. Their position is very, very anti-landlord. The fact is that most private rented properties are owned by people that are not doing it as a significant business. They've just got one or two properties. More than 70% of the housing stock in the UK is owned by people who just have one or two properties as a sideline to their job and that kind of thing. These people have real expenses to pay, mortgage payments and bills and utilities, and if the tenant stops paying rent, then who plugs that gap? Of course, with the Section 24 tax introduced a few years ago, the hapless small landlord, even if the tenant is not paying any rent, they still have to pay tax based on the mortgage interest they have on the mortgage they have on the property. It seems completely incredible to me that Polly Neat, the CEO of the housing charity Shelter, seems to describe all landlords as being greedy when she, on her largely taxpayer-funded salary of £150,000, earns considerably more than 70% of all the landlords out there. So this really isn't good news. I mean, we all know food, bread and milk and eggs. This is all essential stuff too. But no one says you can just waltz into Tesco and take what you want and not pay your bill. But all this is very short-sighted because it's not just bad news for landlords, it's going to be bad news for tenants. And let me explain why. What we're going to see is landlords will increasingly only offer properties to people of very strong financial standing. And this will adversely affect tenants who have lower incomes or less stable employment. Because now, of course, landlords have problems evicting tenants for non-payment of rent. What sanction is there left if a tenant doesn't pay? Well, the only sanction there is to go to court and seek a judgment for non-payment. So basically to put a CCJ, a county court judgment against that tenant's name. That is only an appropriate sanction if the tenant cares about their credit rating. So in our property business, we're not experiencing this as a problem. One of the reasons for this is that the kind of properties that we have and the locations they're located in, we tend to attract a higher earning tenant group. And with that higher earning tenant group, they're the sort of people who one day will be looking to own their own home, will be looking to lease a car. Hell, even if you want to get a mobile phone contract, your credit rating will be very, very important and you will not want to mess it up. But there are plenty of people who may not necessarily aspire to getting a mortgage one day, for whom their credit rating doesn't matter. And I see a massive deterrent for landlords to rent to this group. If this ban becomes permanent and things like Section 21 notices get abolished, we could easily see a situation where lenders start to look unfavourably at buy-to-let. Let's rewind slightly a little bit for younger viewers, if you like. In the 1970s and 80s, tenancy rules were a mess. You couldn't raise rents, you couldn't get anyone out, and as a result, no one wanted to provide rental housing accommodation. There was no incentive to provide any rental accommodation by the private sector. Not having rental accommodation is not good for any economy, because for an economy to grow, you need job mobility. For job mobility, you need your workforce to be able to move around to wherever the employment is. And for people to make that transition, to make that movement, you need rental housing supply. And this was a real problem up until the mid-1980s, when it was Margaret Thatcher who brought in the Assured Short-Hold Tenancy Agreement and the Section 21 notice, which basically allows properties to be let out but ensured the rights of the property owner. Now, when the rights of the property owner were kind of assured and enshrined in law, then lenders were willing to lend on that asset, to lend to people looking to buy buy-to-let property. So when the AST came in and the rights of the property owner were enshrined in law, that was when lenders decided to lend on that class of property. What we are seeing now is a rollback. We're seeing a rollback decades, quite frankly. And if we continue to go in this direction, what we're going to see is that the property owner has less rights and it will be less attractive for lenders to back investment in that class of asset. And less rental stock in an economy means less job mobility, which means less growth in the overall economy. So what are the alternatives? How do other countries do things? Recently, there's been a lot of talk in bringing over from Australia a points-based immigration system. But what about looking at the way they do tenancies in Australia? The Australian system aims to be neutral in terms of balancing equally the interests of landlords and tenants, and doesn't aim to be political at all. The system there is relatively straightforward. If the rent is in arrears by 14 days, then you can go through the process to evict the tenant. Why shouldn't it be the same as any other service or product that you buy? If you pay, you get it. If you don't, you don't. What that means, of course, is that it's great for tenants, because all tenants, no matter what their job type or income, have a fair crack at getting a property. In the UK, we're fast moving to a system that unless you work for have a big league job in a big league company, a landlord will not want to let to you. And this situation will be further exasperated as smaller scale landlords decide that it's just too risky to let out their property without the certainty that they'll get it back, and they decide to sell instead. Now, I'm really quite livid by all of this. It just doesn't seem right to me that the landlords should really just foot the bill for all of this. I'm very interested to hear what you have to say about this tenant eviction ban, and do leave your comments underneath this video. In particular, do you agree with me? Do you agree with me that you are going to look differently on a tenant with a lower income, perhaps with a more unstable job, than you would do a rock-solid tenant working for a great company on a far greater salary, for example? Do you have any experiences of the Australian system, either as a landlord or a tenant, or any other country's system? Are you a smaller scale landlord thinking about selling up because it's just too risky? Now, about a year ago, I recorded a video, 3 reasons why buy-to-let is dead. It's had nearly 95,000 views. I'll put a link here, there. I think this tenant eviction ban and the possibility of Section 21 being abolished is just another death knell. It's a sort of a 4th reason why residential buy-to-let may have seen its glory years in the past. This is why I'm a big fan right now of commercial property and small-scale development opportunities, because when one door closes, another door always opens. And the door that's opening right now is commercial property repurposing. Now, I'm running a completely free training session on this subject this Sunday. You can click on the link below, property-workshop.com, to register for your free space if you want to find out what that's all about. But I think the residential buy-to-let in its current form, it's in its sunset years now. There are other opportunities in property. Check out my webinar on Sunday to find out more.